Munde. I'm the founder of Hope Spring Eternal Protection Agency and the founder of Ngozi Talk Shows. So today with me I have Shireen and Carol Ann. So I'm going to let Carol Ann please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, good
Sorry, we are late,
afternoon.
guys. Technical problems.
Yeah. Um, so good afternoon from London, UK. And as the writing facilitator, what I do is I support soul-driven entrepreneurs in becoming more productive with their writing. But more importantly, they experience free-flowing writing. They experience an unlocking of the writer within and getting their book written, getting their story written, because you cannot publish what isn't written. And all of this has come about through my own journey of unlocking the writer within. So I'm looking forward to today's conversation, when to quit and when to keep going. So Shireen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Carol Ann. I would love that. I would love to introduce myself. And hi, everybody. It's lovely to see you from London. Hopefully that everything is going well where you are right now. I know some places are very hot. So don't get too hot under the collar. Know when to quit when you should quit and when to stay the course. So I'm Sharon Lovegrove, and I basically work with women that have imposter syndrome. And really, I help them walk the sovereign way, which is really learning how to govern themselves through their heart, their mind, their soul, and spirit. Excuse me. Ultimately, as Nkosi, as Nomsa said today, and on the introduction, is lead from within. Leading from within is the only way, and that's exactly what I do. I work with women in order to help them lead from within, help them govern from within, because only then can they govern in the outside world. And like any leader, we have to know when to cease the battle and when to go forward. And this is really what today's topic is, and I'm quite excited that we'll be chatting about it. So looking forward to doing that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shireen. So our topic today is how to know when it's time to quit. So I'm not gonna say anything. I'm basically interested to find out why Carol Ann chose this topic. Over to you, Carol Ann, please.
What sparked my interest about it was actually thinking about Simone Biles and her giving up, and just saying enough, and not going forward and pushing herself to go for the finals in the Olympics and making that decision. And that can't have been easy for her. When do you decide enough is enough and I just can't go forward anymore? And for her to make that decision took courage, but it also took that ability to know what's more important, your own mental health and physical health, or pushing yourself for something that, that gold medal that is possibly within your grasp, but actually at what cost? And knowing that she'd got into that faltering, doubting stage. Well, in that game, you cannot falter. When you've watched her before, she clearly has no doubts when you've watched her before. But this time, I think there was something she did on the bars,
Yeah.
and she faltered a bit. Well, that is a sign, and I'm glad she took that sign. If you've got those doubts, it's dangerous in that game. It really is dangerous. So I thought, let's explore it, because it isn't just in that, it's in your job, it's in other things as well. And I know it's crept up for me a few times over the years. So that's where the idea came from, how to know when to say enough. And but also giving her due in having that courage to say, no, I can't go on, it allowed for someone else and others to step up and succeed,
Mhm.
you know, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. And it's about team, isn't it? Knowing that you don't have to do it all yourself. So again, there's that factor that comes in. And
Yeah.
yeah, beautiful, beautiful lessons there that she's teaching everybody. So yeah, that's where it came from. So you've got something there to add in, Shireen. I see you agreeing there.
Oh, I'm definitely agreeing. And I was, it was incredible because I was watching the gymnastics. It's my favorite one. I love gymnastics. And I saw the hesitation. And when I saw the hesitation, my heart just dropped. And the first thing that she did, she was on the floor and she went out of the floor space. And I thought, that's not like her. That's unusual. There's something going on. And then I saw her on the beams, and she just was not there. Although she did really good rounds. She pretty much was going to win, but because of that uncertainty, if anything had gone wrong, she would have. It's dangerous. It's absolutely so dangerous. And if your mind is not there and you're not mentally attuned to that and you're not listening, because that part of you that is kind of off kilter and you don't listen to that, you are going to come a cropper because it's going to get louder and louder and louder and louder until it forces you to stop. And so I think the most amazing and courageous thing that she did was to own that and to go, you know what? I'm going to listen to this. I'm going to listen to this inner voice, because this inner voice obviously knows something more that I don't know right now, that I can't see right now. So, I mean, and it was amazing because certainly the States, Samira, the second on the of the American team, she got the all out one, all out gymnast. The Americans still won. They still won.
Yeah,
So she really allowed her team to step up, as you said, and it was amazing, truly, truly, truly amazing to see and to experience. And there's also others. Diane Asher Smith, who also went to the Olympics. She had an injury and she wanted to do more, and then she did. She actually got some personal bests coming up, but also again she had to pull out. She had to pull out because there was that long where she realized I've pushed myself enough, but if I go any further, I'm going to have another injury like I had before, and I'm not ready. And so it was interesting. And what she said at the end is, I know what a great athlete I am. The fact that I pulled out does not take away who I am. And that sentence just really clicked for me when I heard it. And I thought, I was kind of thinking, well, actually, you went to the Olympics. Was that the right decision to do? And then I kind of thought, well, actually it was, because part of what she needed to do was to learn her ability to hold and when to let go. And I think that was a very powerful thing. How do you win the war? Sometimes you've got to win the war by letting go and coming back and letting go and coming back and letting go and coming back. As long as you know what that outcome is and what that purpose is all about. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And you say about, she said, I know I'm a good athlete. And I think if you can get to that point of recognizing it for yourself, and it is about that recognition for yourself, and it's not about recognition from other people, that is so powerful. When you can acknowledge that and recognize it for yourself, you're in a much more solid footing. Yeah. What do you think, Namsa?
I think it is actually powerful that she gave up her light to actually give somebody else a second chance. And she knew that she couldn't go on because at the end of the day, these people, they are athletics, they are human beings like us. And she knew what she was feeling as a human being. She knew the things that she could do and the things she can't do. and her body was actually telling her that it's not the time, although you want to compete, but it's not the time. I'm glad that she didn't actually care about what the public thinks. She took that decision and said, no, I can't go on. And which is a very, very difficult decision that anybody can do. When people make decisions, they make decisions because they make decisions to make other people happy. But as a woman, she stood and said, I can't go on. And she knew that she's being a good role model to children who are watching that moment, so that they learn that when things get tough, not because I always teach my daughter that you dance when you are in pain. When I said to her that you dance when you are in pain, I know that as an athletics, you don't get to recover. So these people basically they are always in pain. But when the injured, when somebody's injured or mentally, your body tells you I can't go on. That means it's real. So she was able to say I can't do it, which means whatever she's going on is real, and she's trained all her life, and she knows that if I say this, if I stop this, that means I have a comeback. I'm gonna come back and win whatever I have missed this time. And she didn't miss anything because her country won. So I think that is amazing. So if any woman out there who is watching was watching the Olympics, so and any children that were watching the Olympics, it's not about the winning. I always tell my daughter, whatever you do in life, it's about competing. It's not about winning. We went dancing one day. She had the dance competition, but I took the wrong music at home. And when we got there in front of the crowd, at a big theater, the crowd, they're playing the music. She's like, what is going on? That is the wrong music. And then she realized the music was wrong, and she stopped the everyone and went, I know this the dance by heart. I can dance without the music if you let me. So there was one of the judges was with the guy from Doctor Who. They were like, okay, that's fine. She danced. She came second. She was penalized for not having the music. If she had the music, she would have came fast. But because I taught her that whatever you do in life, it's not about winning, it's about you going in, enjoying yourself. The rest, you just leave it out there, leave it for everyone to judge you. But if you know you are the best, I can't tell you you're the best. So that girl, she knows she's the best. She doesn't need anyone to affirm who she is. And I applaud her for that.
And that was great because actually, this is about knowing when to quit and when to carry on and how to carry on. And
Yes.
in that moment, she knew that it wasn't about quitting. She knew how she could continue. And therefore, she actually did the best that she could in that moment and did really well. And that again and it is all down to that mental state, isn't it? That knowing when to continue, how to continue, and when actually it's not right to continue, because mental health is very key in this. And I know, where are we? August, in June, I was down to do a half-hour talk as part of it's a week of talks that you get an opportunity to get a half-hour slot within that week, and it's called Inspire Talks. And I'd chosen the Sunday evening to do a talk, and I got my talk, the topic that I was going to talk about. But as the day got closer, I just couldn't quite get it formulated in my head, and it felt like my head was really tight. And as the day wore on and I got closer, I thought, I just can't do this. I felt tired, exhausted. My head was just not in the game. It wasn't focusing. And in the end, I said, you know what? I have to let this go. And I let it go. And then last month, July, it was just last weekend actually, I we know the weekend gone, the weekend before, it was the time again. I had picked another slot, and I did that talk that I prepared. I was ready, I was alert, I had it, I got it clear, knew exactly what I was going to talk about, and I did the talk and felt really great because of it. And it was in that, it's knowing when to continue and when to stop. And I wouldn't have done a great job if I'd forced myself to do it before. I'd have been all over the place. And actually my head just felt so tight that, yeah. But the second time when I went for it, it was just like, I couldn't believe the difference. I was clear. I knew I got as focused. I literally had got it all mapped out. I knew what it was I wanted to talk about. So yeah, it's so acknowledge your daughter for knowing when to continue and when to quit, because it is there is important distinction there. Yeah.
So much. Do you have any points, Shalane, you would like to add?
Yeah, I was just really sitting and contemplating what all you said, really. And I think what was really lovely, it's not just about that, but what it was the how that followed. So what did we do in the next proaction? So, some people may say, yes, I'm going to withdraw. What am I going to do? So Samantha lost the thing, Biles. She still stayed. She knew she wasn't going to go, but she was going to support her team. Your daughter decided she was going to dance irrespective. So she wasn't going to allow the failure of something to not allow her to dance. And there was a learning that she gathered from that aspect. And I'm guessing, I'm just thinking more how that is very relevant with what we do when we move into those different spaces of trying to find a deeper knowing for ourselves. So, I was thinking of Carol Ann and sort of kind of that equivalent of where you kind of felt those tight feelings and you were kind of discombobulated and didn't know, but you honored those feelings. And I was kind of thinking more about that wasn't the right time anyway for you at that moment. Obviously, the pieces were not in place. And so therefore, what you didn't do was you didn't say, I'm never going to go and do that again. What you did was you went, well, okay, that's for now. For now, that's where I am and where I can't do this. But that doesn't mean I can't do this in the future. So there's an action you started to do. You allowed all that to percolate in the background, in your mind, and you were working towards the next time. You may not have known that consciously. I don't know whether you did, but it does make sense that the next time you were ready. And I think that's the bit which is like where I said, know when you're going to win the war. When are you going to get where you need to be? What's the outcome and where you're going to go with that is when you know what your next action, your next point of action is going to be. So I hope that Simone Biles absolutely does come back to the Olympics. But even if she doesn't, I still believe for her, she's made the biggest impact that she's going to make probably ever. And that is that actually getting athletes to listen to their body and to have the courage to follow that conviction. And I think that that's the real key here, the real blessing, the real gem that she's created for all of us. And it's really interesting because, most of us will kind of move away. We won't necessarily, we'll do what we shouldn't do. And we'd go on irrespective because that ego or that part of us is so anxious or so worried or so concerned that we'll disappoint or we'll let people down or any of those kinds of things that we sell ourselves out. We sell ourselves out, and so we burn. We literally burn, and that's not helpful. And that's how most illnesses happen. That's how most mistakes happen. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
And as you're saying, it is that not knowing, or it was more maybe coming from a place of fear, knowing that you've got to quit. And I'm thinking about a job now and the job that I was in many years ago in teaching. And I knew that I had to step out in some way. And I had in my head, okay, I'll go part-time teaching and part-time training, what I was then training in educational kinesiology, NLP and all of those, and part-time set up a business in that. And but I couldn't see how it was going to work. And I was trying to fathom it out myself. And, you know, talk about screwing my brain up, because it's like, because I was head of department, I was like, how's this going to work? And I was trying to work out all sorts of scenarios. And in the end, what happened was I actually went off ill. The universe went, enough. You know, I mean, it had been very stressful up to that point anyway, what we'd been through as a school, with going into special measures and the things that I had to deal with as head of department as well, and not having a lot of the training either, because I'd stepped into a role that I hadn't actually had training for, and just sort of was flying along with it. But there were a lot of challenges, especially with staff, and being able to deal with staff, and my own inner child taking over, you know, because in those days I didn't know anything about the inner child who would take over and how to deal with that. And so yeah, there was a lot of challenges. So when I got to that point of thinking, yes, I need to do part-time teaching, part-time setting up my business, how is this going to work, and thinking I had to fathom it out, well, the universe went, no. I was then off ill. I was off ill for right through to that was from the September to the Easter, where I went to see the head teacher, and he said he actually gave me a package to leave. I wasn't really even up to it then to go back, and it just felt right. And so I took the package and left. And then a few months later, I saw an advert for a post part-time teaching in a post-16 college. I applied for the job, got an interview, got the job. Part-time teaching, it was 0.5, which is what I've been thinking about. And part-time, I could set up my business. The universe sorted it out for me. And I think it's where, if you find yourself really trying to think, how am I going to make this work? How am I going to make this work? That there is a key to just stop, because it's focusing on the what and not the how. And the universe always sorts it out. And yeah, and then I found myself in the position that I've been thinking about doing and wanting, but couldn't sort out for myself. It just, it was just, I remember, you know, I got the role and thinking, oh, I'm part-time teaching. And I'd completely forgotten about it, because I, you know, having left the school, I thought, oh, it wasn't going to happen. And I just hadn't given it another thought. So it's amazing how the universe will support you when you let go. And so, you know, other opportunities come into play and show up, and then just grabbing those opportunities, you know. So and it can be quite exciting, actually. A bit daunting, but it is that fear of, oh, you know, of letting go that stops us quitting at times.
I agree with you. Basically, for me, I say God always has a plan. My way is not His way is not my way. So when I know that it is time for me to quit, or even if it's like in the morning, I get up very very early, and the day when I'm tired, I have a lie-in, because I know my body says, Nomsa, you're tired. So I have a lie-in, I get up at 6, the latest. I have that lie-in. So even when you are going through, like Carol Ann, you talk about your story, but you knew that the universe or God had a plan for you. You knew that there's gonna be a way. So if you trust, for me, I always put my trust in God in every situation that I do. Even if I find myself in a horrible situation, I always refuse to hand over my energy to what that is situation. I say, at this moment in hour, I trust him, and I put my trust, my situation in his hand. He knows how he's gonna handle this situation, and sometimes things do work out. You find yourself that it was time for you to move on that moment, and that situation moved you at that moment. So that's what I do when I look at the situation and I see like things are getting tough. There's been times where for me, it was horrible. I was meant to go to Germany to play the match, and I find myself I couldn't go because of immigration. And I said basically to my football manager, I'm not going to basically ask you for temporal to travel. I'm just gonna basically fight for my case and just pray. I just need just 5 days just to pray and be on my own. You guys can go to Germany and play without me. You'll be fine. So when I prayed, and I was like, God, I'm sick and tired of renewing these visas. I'm sick and tired of being told where I can go, where I can't go, and how I can apply. Please, I just want indefinite leave to remain in the United Kingdom. That's my desire. That's if it is your plan, I ask for it. And because I spoke in our situation, and normally I'll ask the lawyers, and I ask my lawyer, and every time I ask my lawyer to write a letter, he charge me £1,000 to send a letter to the immigration. And I was like, I think I've had enough. I think now it's time. Although I have a lawyer, paid my lawyer money that she wanted, but when she wanted me to send the letter, I was like, no, not today. So I knew that it was time for me to fight for my case. So I was lucky. I rang the immigration and I find a nice guy. He said, go get a pen and paper. This is what you need to write, how you're feeling, because you are actually working, you're missing out. And basically, I was very, very active within the society and helping out in the community, my time for free as well. So it was like, you need to write this, or you need to do this. I wrote it, and they replied to me. And when I was busy writing, that's when I found out actually I had already had indefinite leave to remain. There was a confusion, big confusion with the Home Office. I had two cases going because when I rang the second time, and this guy was like, no, sir, hang on a minute. What are you applying for? I was like, indefinite leave to remain. And he was like, but you have already got one. I was like, I haven't got one. I'm applying to get one. He was like, no, no, no. You were given last September. And I was like, no, I wasn't. It was like, you have two cases that are going. Your solicitors never found out. They don't know anything about it because it's because there's two cases that are going. You've applied through your marriage, but you've already been given indefinite leave to remain through you. So you need to close the other case and then get your papers. That's what you need to do. Write it to your solicitors, or it was like the quickest way, go to Croydon. So the following day, I went to Croydon at 6 a.m. and I was like, give me my indefinite leave to remain. And the guy looked at me, he was like, I think it was like, what took you so long to claim it? So I was like, okay, we'll go and get a copy for you. So he went and got a copy for me. So that's when I think it was time for me, because I was fighting for my case and I didn't know. I kept renewing the visas, but I did an application on my own, but I didn't close the application. So because I didn't close the application, the immigration continued with the application, and the application I opened with the solicitor, it was still going. But if I hadn't taken action and say I've had enough of this, and I wouldn't have known what was happening. So sometimes you have to know when to fight your battles, and you have to know when to quit. because I was in a time where I said, God, going home is not an option. I don't want to go home. This is my home now. And I don't want no visa in my life. I want indefinite leave to remain. So I was communicating myself and talking and talking. And that's when I prayed and I rang this guy. He was normally the immigration, they're horrible. They don't want to help you. But he was like chatting to me and telling me stories. And in the end, he was busy checking and he was like, wow, I come across you have indefinite leave to remain unless it's not your picture. He was like, yes, you do. So at that moment, so that's when I realized sometimes you have to know when to quit and fight for your battles, or in business as well. I've never been into that situation where I've had to quit when it comes to business, but I think some people have come across that situation where they have had to quit and maybe start again. But what do you do? What advice? What would you do? Have you been to that situation, Shireen? Or
Yeah. Well, I've got things that I just love that story that you've said about the Home Office. And I think what really triggered for me there was when we say we'll let God, doesn't mean we won't take responsibility for ourselves. And I think sometimes when we let others take responsibility for us, that's when things go wrong. And we have to take responsibility for us. And I think as we started, I was thinking of the story of when I learned in the Kabbalah story, but really, the story of cause and effect. And the story is God loves us so much that he gives us time. We have this time, we have something happens, and we have this time. And then eventually your soul says, nah, no more time. I'm going to do this now because you have got to change. But, with the moment we start to pay more attention to what's going on, that space changes. And time, cause and effect becomes much, much quicker. It closes the gap. So we have an instant view of what's going to happen in the future in the moment that we have an action and we know what's going to happen, and we can make a better choice because now we're seeing the whole picture, almost like in that moment we see all potential, all possibility. But while we are still in that very reactive, not knowing our body, not knowing things, we're going to be that cause and effect, and we're going to have that big gap. So we're often not going to know what caused, what was the cause. And very often, it's interesting, it took 20 years for people to realize that actually smoking caused cancer. And people, how many people didn't have cancer after smoking, but they ended up with chronic pulmonary disease. So we know that when we are doing things that are not helpful, they will cause disease. They'll cause us to have disease. And we have that feeling inside us right at the very beginning. It's telling us this isn't okay because we start to, we're more tired. We feel less active. We feel all sorts of things. We put on weight. We find ourselves in with hives, or we end up with psoriasis, all sorts of things. These are all just things telling us we're not listening to what's going on, and we're kind of becoming reactive to things. So if we take that time, as you said, when we have the moment before we get the universe, or before we're getting our body telling us or putting us in conscious danger so that we stop, we should, it would be helpful if we did it beforehand. It'll be helpful if we did it beforehand. And Nomso, I had a situation with a planning situation, and it was really horrendous. And I had to go through a lot of stuff, really working out. And I kept thinking, the planning office there is more interested in the people that have done a lot of damage rather than in us that are being hurt by this. And eventually, we had to go into a number of sequences of planning rejections. And I thought, well, you know what I can do is I can actually really contact them, and I can find out what it is that I need. And actually just going with that attitude and taking charge of what I could do, we managed to get the enforcement order in that day. And so people will do things if you are very clear and you are congruent and you take charge and you're not attached to the outcome, but you're going from that place of curiosity and you're asking. And that's where we let God, because we're just saying, I'm going to do my bit. I'm going to do my bit. I'm going to ask. I'm going to do this action. And I don't know where it's going to take me, but doing that action is going to be better than being here. And I think that part of, knowing when to stop is knowing when to take that action and do a different action, or maybe even do a complete 180-degree turn and do nothing, do absolutely nothing, and see what happens. But it's still an active choice.
Yeah, it is an active choice. And there's a couple of things that you said there, and one of them about contacting someone and having a conversation. And that was something that you did, Nom. So you were in communication, you contacted someone. And it is about having the conversations, not sitting down and trying to sort it out for yourself. It is being in communication and having those conversations where you can then sort it out, because it all comes alive in conversation. It's all in the words that you speak, and that's what brings everything to life. But when you're trying to sort it for yourself, it doesn't go anywhere. And so actually actively having a conversation with someone, connecting, contacting people that can actually, it's not about having a moan or finding someone who can have a moan about this. It's finding someone who can do something about it, or who can point you in the right direction and say, we're going to have this is the person that you need to speak with. But it is having those conversations. And that is key to a lot of things. And I think if I'd actually maybe had more, I'd actually had conversations with somebody about, well, how can I change, within my teaching, instead of trying to sort it out in my head for myself, things might have gone differently. If I'd actually gone and seen the head and said, look, this is what I'm thinking. How can we make this work? Who knows what might have showed up? Do you know what I mean? But I was very much, I've got to sort this out for myself. So yeah, conversation and talking it through, very, very powerful. And the other thing that you were saying about, yeah, I know hindsight's great, isn't it?
Oh, it's wonderful.
It has been like, oh gosh, there are times that I say that. But actually, yes, listening to your body. And even if it has come into, like psoriasis or this aches and pains and discomfort or disease happening in your body, it is your body giving you a message. And it's because your body, your physical body, is like the last port of call. It can't go anywhere else, And so that's where it shows up. And it's having that conversation with your body. And again, it comes down to conversation. Speak with your body. What's going on here? If this part could talk, what might it be saying? What's the memory that is actually I need to go back to heal, that would support healing this in the moment. And so it's very, very powerful actually talking with your body. And that's what I do a lot of. I'm always sort of communicating it. And your body gives you clues. And also you can hear it when people are talking with the words that they're saying, what's happening with their body. And if you pick those up and play with them and have a dance in that conversation, it's amazing what shows up. And then what sort of memories sort of come to mind, or what inner child is who was hurt, or there was some miscommunication that didn't get resolved. And those, it's held on to. And that's where then the dis-ease in the body comes in, and the illness creeps in, and the body just, starts to, I just want to say shrivel up, bless it. it's like, oh, okay. And it's like, no, when are you going to listen to me? And so, yeah, it's that listening, it's having those conversations that just open things up beautifully. So, yeah, those were the two things I sort of picked up in what you were saying there, Shireen,
Mm.
and letting go of attachment. Because when you're attached to something,
Yeah.
it's got an emotional drive to
Gosh.
it. And then when it doesn't happen, that's where you get disappointment. If you're not attached to it, you're just committed to an outcome, then whatever happens, you're not disappointed. You can just go, okay, so this is what's happened. How can I move on? What do I need to do? And you can just keep moving on and keep reviewing and taking action until you get to where it is that you want to be. And I know that when we were looking for another place to live, my daughter, myself, and her family, I just let go of it. It's like I kept saying, I'll be wherever I'm meant to be. Because there was one point, where my daughter said, well, I don't know if we can accommodate you, Mum. I don't think we can afford somewhere that's got enough rooms. And I said, it's fine. Wherever I'm meant to be, I'll be. And I just whatever kept showing up emotionally, I would work with it and clear it. And she kept finding different houses, and they didn't work out. And I just say, well, if it's not this one, then it'll be one that's more appropriate, and just kept moving forward. And until she found this place, and even, it tested my belief and faith in this work right up to the last minute, because we got to a point where they said no. And I remember thinking, Lord, what's going on? I don't understand. This really felt right. It felt like it is the one. What more do I need to do? And just kept going, okay, if it's not this, be something greater. And then it just, in that moment, there was something that I could do that I hadn't dared to do before. And I did it, and had a chat with my daughter about it. And then, ironically, the very next day, something happened, and they went, yes, you can have the property. It was like, oh my goodness. And I was able to be included in it. It's big enough, it had enough rooms. And so because I was able to contribute to the rent, it meant they could afford the property. But it was just taking away the attachment that it has to be a certain thing. We had certain criteria that we wanted, but whatever showed up, it's like, okay, how can I make this work if it's not? But yeah, just being committed to an outcome. We would find somewhere to live that would be have all, tick all the boxes that we wanted, but we took away the attachment, and it lets go of that emotion, lets go of the disappointment and heartache, and just helps you just keep going. And yes, you can get tested, sorely tested, right to the very last moment. And again, it's just, okay, Lord, show me again, show me, and letting go of the attachment. This is it. This is it. It's like, okay, if it's not meant to be, and in that moment, it changed. And that was so bizarre to say the very next day. Yeah. So to say that they looked at some things differently and went, you can have it. And I remember my daughter said, I won't believe this until I got the keys in my hand and we're in the house. And, 4.5 years later, we're still here. It's like amazing. So, definitely be aware of being attached to an outcome, because that's where the emotion comes in.
Yeah. Fabulous story about really life is really a story of just letting go, isn't it? It's what we seek to accumulate, but actually it's really, the paradox is it's about letting go. It's not about accumulating. What it is about growing into ourselves. And that is as we grow, we let go. That rhymes. Guess what?
I love that.
Yeah, as we grow, we let go. Ooh. But one of the things that really came from me over the course of a couple of weeks ago, I was in a supervision, a psychotherapy supervision session. And one of the real things that I kind of was, my attention was brought to this absolute notion of one of our first and most imperative things as we do as a child is we want to do everything by ourselves. By ourselves, because we are, and we are become very proud of doing things by ourselves. I want to tie my shoes on my own. I want to do this on my own because we're wanting to kind of create presence in our lives. And how that challenge has to be when we call ourselves our ego or whatever goes on, is how are we challenging that ego when we let go? And one of the real interesting things, which why this highlighted, was with people with dementia or mental issues, one of the hardest things for them is to actually be helped because they want to do it on their own. And you needing to work it out in your head first before we'll tell anybody else. And there's something about this needing, and it's almost so deep because it's right there at that pivotal time of our life when we take care of ourselves, when we learn to become. It's all to do with that I. And I want this for me. And then part of really learning as we get older, as I said, the learning of growing and letting go is all about that process of that letting go and learning to not become the I so much and not be so attached to the I. And when we say, yes, I let go, I surrender, I don't know what I can do. I can do my bit here, but I know that I trust that there's something more. I trust you, God. And whatever one believes, it's your faith. I believe that, here in this lifetime, I'm God of my universe, as you are all God of your universe. And so therefore, I must trust that higher aspect of myself knows exactly, because it's connected to the source. And when we choose to not listen to that, we get these indications. That's the feelings. That's how God talks to us, through the feelings and the sound and the talk. And so when we fight that, we're fighting God. We fight God. God, Goddess, all that is, whatever you know it, but we are fighting that. So we are fighting the essence of ourself. That's pretty scary.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sharon. I like it when you say let go of the attachment, to take charge of the outcome, and basically you have the understanding the process of letting go. I love that because I think that's what I do for a living. I don't get attached to problems. Basically, I used to get attached to problems and attached to the situation. If I'm doing something, I get attached to something, and then if I don't get the results that I want, I get very, very disappointed, and I'll be basically feeling sorrow for myself. But then I realize actually, if I'm praying to God and saying, God, hear my prayers. And if I'm actually asking with the universe and say and speaking the things that I want, why do I need to worry? So I need to hand everything to God and take action if I can take action, or if I can seek help and just do it, because God will not do things. You have to do it yourself. He will just give you the directions of the people that send people your way for them to help you. But at the end of the day, you need to be the one that have to take action. So I let go if the situation does not allow me to actually, we want to move out of the house. We wanted to downgrade because of the pandemic and stuff. So everyone wants to downgrade and stuff, and everyone is talking. We want to move and get this bedroom and this bedroom. And I was like, I think I'm just gonna pray. I'm not gonna make a decision yet. I'm just gonna pray and and see what we basically needs to do at this moment. Like Carol Anna was saying, talking about her moving story. So it's like I just don't know what I need to do at this moment, because I don't just make a decision. I just have to step back from talking about the problems, and I just have to step back and just basically work out my finances and see whether things are gonna work out or things are not gonna work out. So that's what I do. So I was like, you guys can keep talking to me. I don't talk about problems. I have to take action and just see whether I can sort this out, or we can't sort it out, obviously. And that's how I sort out the problems. I don't get attached to the problems, and I've learned that the hard way. And this destroyed my marriage as well, because my ex was like, "Why can't you just be normal like everybody else and just show that you care?" I was like, "Actually, I do care a lot. It's just you guys want to go and sit down and feel sorry. But for me, I talk about it. And when I talk about it, I know the plan. When I take action and create a plan, for me, that's enough. And for me to just mope around with the problems and start feeling sorry for myself, I don't do that. So that destroyed my marriage, because my ex was like, "You have to be normal." I was like, "This is normal. Like how I can get. I can't get any normality than this." So with Martin, he knows that he's just like me. We basically have to talk about how to move forward with the situation, and just talk about how to solve it, instead of me feeling sorry he's annoying me, I'm annoying him. We both don't do that. So basically, we are just like, okay, this is how we're gonna solve the problem. Is it gonna work out? Is it not gonna work out? Let's see what happens. And I just have to send the emails and make sure that there's people that are supporting me. I have support around, but I can't just go for coffee and say, "Hey, this is the problem that I have." I don't do that. So for me, I need somebody that is going to help me to take action, and that's enough. So I think, like when we're talking about the Olympics, Simone, what she did, I think that is very, very, very powerful for somebody who is seeing that there's time where you have to say, "I can't do this," and not worrying about what the world is gonna say, what the family is gonna say, they're gonna think, friends. At the end of the day, when you are in that battleground, you're on your own. People might be there to support you. For me, that's how I see life. That people might be there to support you. By the end of the day, you have that final say. We may be here to go to talk shows. One of our speakers, he has the problem, and if we have to support her, we can support. But at the end of the day, that person is the one that has to have a final say about where they are going, what they are doing, how they are making their decision, how they want to lead their lives. That's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, encouragement, ladies. We are coming into 2 p.m. Carol Ann, do you have any quotes today? Last week you had so many. Oh, can't hear you.
It helps if you're not on mute. Oh gosh. Um, yeah, I forget. I mean, I muted myself because I'm coughing, and then it's like I forget. Um, yes, so just a few points. I don't have any quotes today, but there's a few points that I think would be useful. You know, and it's like, the question when to quit. Sort of ask yourself, well, is this taking more away from me than it's giving me in return? Is the potential reward no longer worth the risks that it costs? And maybe when you see a potential better opportunity, You know, there's some sort of guidelines as to think when to quit, um, when to sort of keep going and double down into it. Uh, if it gives you more than it takes, is it still giving you more than it's taking away from you? Because I remember years previously when I was teaching, and my uncle used to say to me, "Why don't you quit?" Because I was talking about all the problems and the tension then, and I said, "Well, actually, I was getting more from it than um, it was taking from me in those respects. I got a lot from it, but obviously that changed over time. But in that moment, yes, it was worth me keep going, and that was many years ago. So yeah, if it's giving you more than it's taking, um, the risk reward scenario is agreeable. Sort of the risks that you take and the reward you get. Does that work for you? So then again, look at it, and then you believe it is your best opportunity right now. And if that's what you believe, go for it. Really go into it, and you enjoy it overall, despite the difficulties. If
Yes.
there is that joy in it, and in spite of the difficulties, then again, go for it. So it's balancing up. It's asking those questions. Look at it, and only you know whether it's time to quit or not, or to keep going. So that's my final bits of advice for today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol and Shireen.
Yeah, I love that risk and reward, and knowing, having that real clarity over over whether it's giving us what we need and what we have desired, and also the fact of joyfulness. That really is, for me, that's the real indicator. Are you in this moment? Are you experiencing joy? Are you experiencing that upliftment that this is giving you what you need? And is, because if it isn't, then there's a real indication that somewhere, even if you think it's something you should do, it's not helping you in any form, because your soul only knows joy. And when when you're not experiencing it, you're not experiencing the upliftment of your soul. So for me, that's really the key. So yeah, if and I want to really also say, beware of the idea of an addiction. People that are in the process of drinking or doing something that's really making them in the high, kind of try and be aware of that difference between that high state, which is really excited and really kind of frenetic, to the gentle expanding of the high. So there's a very different space where it's growing and it's organic and it feels consistent, it's sustainable, it's maintainable, and it gives you that nourishment all the time. And then if you can kind of ask that question, does this nourish me? Does this help me grow? Does this help me expand? Does this allow me to be who I need to be as the person that is, as the divine essence that I am? And I think if you can connect with that, then, you're probably going to be on the right journey, because you'll know when to let go at that point or not. And it may be hard, but I think that it's a good start. It's a good start to be in that space. And yeah, for me, I think what I'm taking away here, which really clicked for me, was something that I said earlier on, which was, as we grow, we let go. That at the moment, I'm doing quite a lot of that, my processing, my inner processing, and I'm kind of really aware that actually, when we let go of what doesn't serve us, we're now making the decision towards going what does. And in that moment, we are aligned with all of us. And yeah, that's then going to allow whatever decision you make to be the right one.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shireen. For me, basically, I would say if you feel that it is time for you to quit, or things are not going how they are meant to be, Don't worry about what people think, because when you worry about people, you're not really making a decision. Worry about what is going on with you, and worry about your creator. If I didn't create you, if I didn't make you, I cannot affirm who you are, what you can do, what you can't. So you know your situation. So just make a decision based on your physically and mentally what you're going through, and just let the universe, like Carol Ann says,
Mm.
let the universe do the work, because everything that comes your way, there's a lesson that we're learning in that at that moment. And there's sometimes there are opportunities that are being open and we don't realize. So that's what life is about. Life is about letting go the attachment. Shireen spoke about the attachment. Let go of the attachment and just let the universe come in, and God come in and help you. So thank you so much, everyone who is watching and who will be watching later. If you're watching the talk show, please share some love with your family and friends. And we are here Monday to Friday at Ngozi Talk Shows. If you want to get in touch with any of our speakers, please go to our page and get in touch with us, or you can go to Hope Springs Eternal Introduction Agency. Get in touch with the speakers there. Either way, God bless you and live with grace.
You too.